welcome back to another Fresher Take podcast. I'm Tori.
And I'm Alex.
And today we're going to be talking about handling academic stressors. Now, we all know that being at university can be a really stressful time, particularly with our academics. So today we'll be talking about the academic worries that you might have while at university, how you can relieve your academic stress, some techniques that can keep you on track, and how you can receive some additional support while you're a student at the University of Lincoln. So, Alex, what is it that worries you the most when it comes to your academics?
With me, it's to do with time management.
Yeah.
I always worry that, with multiple deadlines being due at the same time, that I'm going to not manage my time correctly, and I worry that everything's going to get on top of me because, as we all know, when we have deadlines, they're always in the same 1 to 2 week bracket, which can be quite overwhelming. So that's always what stresses me out because it's just in my head, they're all in my head at the same time. So it's just, I always get stressed about trying to figure out what to prioritize.
Yeah,
and things like that.
I think that's the worst part, isn't it? It's like, well, I've got this one due on like the 20th, but then another one due on the 22nd. So how do I make sure I get them both done on time? So yeah, I know that one can be so difficult. I think for me, the one I worry about the most is just trying to make sure I get the best grade. I put so much pressure on myself to do the best, and if I don't get the grade that I wanted, then I kind of beat myself up about that. So because of that, I end up doing like 12-hour days of just working, doing my deadline, forgetting to eat, forgetting to just stop for 5 minutes and like hydrate, stuff like that. It can be really difficult, because you just kind of want to make sure that you do the best, which you're going to do as best as you can do, and I'm sure that all your tutors will tell you that as well. But when it hits that, my deadline's due in a week, that's when it really gets like, right, okay, I've got to make sure I get this right, get it perfect.
Yeah, no, I kind of get that as well, because at the end of the day, you always want to do your best, and like you always maybe have that thought in your head, is like, as long as I do my best, it'll be fine. But also at the end of the day, when you see a number, it's just like,
I should have done better. Yeah,
I should have done better.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm going to go into a bit of detail about, how common it is to be stressed about academics, because at the start of a semester, right, and I think our uni is very good at this, I mean, in my experience anyway, you get told your academic deadlines pretty much instantly, which on the one hand is fantastic because you already have the end goal in your head, like when things are due, so you can start to plan. But also it means that worry about those deadlines is in the back of your mind from a very early point, which can be, a massive worry. And, university is a big step up from a lot of previous educational experience. So it's also natural to worry about the height of the workload that you're going to get. As we've mentioned, getting several deadlines at the same time is something that maybe a lot of people aren't used to, especially if you're new to uni. So it's very natural to worry about that. And also there's a lot of, I feel, worry that can stem from having low academic self-esteem, worrying that you're not good enough to get the marks. But what you do have to remember is that you got into uni. Like, you managed to get in, you got accepted, you got the grades necessary for getting into this university, which means that the university thinks that you are capable of the workload that they present to you in their institution. So if you can keep that in mind, then that can really help with any low academic self-esteem you might be experiencing. And, also another worry that may come up is, sometimes things happen out of the blue, something like illness, something like a family grievance, like some sort of emergency that you might not foresee can come up and just derail everything in terms of your academia. You may miss classes and you may worry about catching up because of being absent. And something that I found as well, if you miss one session, you miss a lot.
You do.
So it's very natural. It's very natural to worry about missing sessions and having to catch up and then being behind. But hopefully this podcast is going to show you that all of those worries can be mitigated, and Tori's going to go into a little bit about how you can relieve some of your academic stress.
Yeah, and like Alex said, it is completely natural to be worrying about, obviously, your academic stresses and things, and sometimes things get in the way that you can't help, and, being absent can also add on top of all of that anxiety and that worry. But obviously there are ways that you can try and relieve your academic stress. It's obviously really important to keep on track with your studies and meet all of your deadlines so that you get the grades that you can get. But we also have to make sure that our mental well-being is healthy, because obviously that is really important too. So if you feel that you are experiencing high levels of stress because of your studies, then you have to know when you can actually walk away from your laptop screen, which again we know can be really difficult, because once you're in that zone and you know exactly what you're doing and you want to make sure you get the best grade, it can be really difficult to just put it away, because even when you walk away from the laptop screen, your brain's almost racing, like, oh well, I just figured out I can put this there, I know what to do for this bit, and then you ended up going back a lot sooner than you should have. But yeah, so ways that you can actually try and relieve your academic stress is to designate time for studying and time for fun. So things like that, there's plenty of exploring that you can do in Lincoln, and there's plenty of societies that you can get yourself involved in, from sports to academic ones, just to little random ones where you just want to have a bit of fun. Make sure you get yourself involved with your societies, because you'll feel like you're part of like a big friendship group, and that's a great way of just kind of making sure that you separate your studies and your fun time. Or even just doing something as simple as just watching a film on your own. It doesn't matter what it is that you do for fun, just as long as you're taking time away just to do something that you enjoy doing. But another thing that you can do if you're really worried about your academics is you can arrange a one-to-one with your personal tutor. You can tell them what it is that you're worrying about, which obviously is probably going to be about your academics, or even just something that might be going on in your own time, and see how they can help you. If anything, they might just give you a bit of reassurance, and you'll find that that's actually what you might have needed, like for them just to let you know that you are doing great, you're on top of things. You might be a bit behind, but you have plenty of time to catch up. And I'm sure that if you needed help with like feedback and things like that, whatever it is that you're doing, like whether it's an assignment or just a bit of homework that you had to do, they would be absolutely more than happy to help you. You can focus your mind on your favourite hobby, which could be something like binging Netflix, do some painting or drawing, get lost in a novel, or even just picking up a new hobby. There's plenty of things to learn at university. I'm sure you'll find that soon, so you might actually pick up some new things, like maybe doing some embroidery, which is actually what I started doing last week. A lot more difficult than I thought. It really was. You can have a catch up with your friend, where you can talk about anything, whether that's to do with your academics or even just something fun, something that you've been doing, something new, something old. It doesn't matter. Just get lost in a conversation with your friend. It might help you get some things off your chest. And you can also go out and do some kind of exercise, because doing exercise is quite good for when we have a lot of mental stresses. It can help relieve that. So whether that be going to the gym, it could be hiring one of the city bikes, which you can find all around Lincoln, or something as simple as going for a walk on your own or with a friend. It can be a very therapeutic form of stress relief, which can obviously help clear your mind, reorganise your thoughts, and then you're ready to go back into sit behind the laptop screen and getting on with your deadlines. Now, there are many techniques to keep you on track, which Alex is going to dive right deep into.
Yes, I am. So there are lots of techniques here that I'm going to outline for you that I hope will help. And in fact, now just skimming my eyes over the list, I realise that I definitely do all of these and have done all of these, and they have all helped me. So first of all, organisation, which as a word I know sounds quite intimidating, because especially if you have a lot to organise, it can just seem like an incredibly impossible task. But if you do simple things such as making to-do lists and keeping such things as notes for specific modules in one place, then it can make things so much more straightforward when you come to access your work, rather than, say, if you have one notebook for everything and you're having to rifle through to find what it is you're looking for. If you say, right, I'll have, for example, one notebook, I'm going to use my modules as an example, one notebook for the business of writing, one notebook for reading as a writer, one notebook for manuscript preparation, then it can make things a lot easier when it comes to accessing what you need to access when you want to come to work on it, because you're not having to spend perhaps half an hour trying to rifle through thousands and thousands of notes. Another technique is your time management, which is something that is very key for me personally. Something that can be really useful is keeping a weekly diary which outlines your workload just for that week. So you say, Monday I shall do this one thing, Tuesday this, Wednesday this, and so on and so forth, rather than jamming everything into one day. Spreading things out across a week and making sure you spread that workload out rather than condensing it into one very busy day can be really helpful for you. Another thing is communicating with your tutors. I cannot stress this enough. Communicating with your tutors can be one of the most helpful things ever. All your tutors want to do is help you, and they're literally just an email away. And I know it might feel maybe intimidating to engage in contact with someone who maybe you don't know yet if you're new at the uni, but all they want to do is help you, and I can assure you they will have the answers to all your questions. Also, communicating with your peers, so other people on your course, your friends, can be really helpful because everyone will literally be feeling the same things that you are feeling. Like, odds are they will be stressed about the same things you are stressed about. And talking about that with each other can be the most helpful thing in the world. It can be really helpful to have that kind of, academic relationship where, you're all going through the same experience. So it can be so helpful just to support each other through it as well. Another technique, and I know this may sound incredibly painful. I know it sounds painful to me, but turn off your phone.
Do it.
During time where you want to study. Do it. Trust me. Or if you don't want to turn it off, at least put it on silent so that your notifications for Twitter and Insta and TikTok aren't just popping up constantly. It is the biggest distraction. And I'm guilty of this. If I see MCU Direct on Twitter have tweeted another theory about upcoming Phase 4 content for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I'm like, ooh, and I will turn away from my laptop and go and look at that and read their article instead of doing my work. So trust me, turning your phone on silent or turning it off can be the biggest help because it really is the biggest distraction for a student.
I think it's as well what they say, when you're in your exams at school and they say don't talk to anyone because that person could have a thought in their mind and you speak to them and then they lose it. It's like that all over again. Turn off your phone.
Exactly. And one final thing I'm going to outline is that it can be really helpful if you find yourself a very specific studying environment. I know the temptation is, I'm in my room, I'm comfy in my room, I'm comfy in my bed, I'll just do everything in my bed. But if you're in bed, the temptation is, I also watch Netflix and sleep here, so I may just sack off studying and do that instead because I'm so comfy. Whereas, for instance, if you make the effort to say to yourself, right, I'm going to go to the library for an hour, or a coffee shop, or a university building like Minerva or Alfred Tennyson, your brain will switch more easily to a studying mindset, basically, because your brain's like, right, I've made the effort, I've got all my studying material, I'm in a place of study that's not my home. It will automatically want to focus on the work that you then bring out into focus. So do not underestimate how really helpful entering a new environment can be for studying.
Okay, everyone, so now we have our special guest, Dr. Christopher Dows, who is a lecturer at the university, and he is here to speak to you about the additional support that is available at the university. So, Chris, would you like to say hello and introduce yourself?
Absolutely. I am the programme leader for the Single Honours BA Creative Writing in the School of English and Journalism. I also was instrumental in the design and launch of the Joint Honours English and Creative Writing. I teach on the Masters Creative Writing and also the Creative Writing and Publishing, which is in conjunction with The Guardian. And I also supervise PhD students, and I've been lecturing for 26 years, which is exactly the same time as I've been a published professional author.
Amazing. So obviously at the university, you've been there for over, 26 years. So you've obviously managed to have a lot of students come in and out in that time. So we're going to speak about PASS, which is the Personalised Academic Study Support, which is available at the university. So we just thought we'd ask you what you know about PASS and how you support your students with it.
Yeah, PASS is a really, really useful and, has proven to be even more of an important tool for all lecturing staff and actually support staff as well. Obviously, when a student approaches the SU for support, if they're referred to the PASS system, there will be some quite confidential information there. So the first thing I need to say is that PASS reports are not handed out willy-nilly. They have a high level of protection on the people who get to see them and get to access them. So what happens is when you've got a student who, let's say, for instance, has evidence of a diagnosed disability or mental health issue, the report is formed, and then only the relevant members of staff are told that a report is available for this student, which they can then they can access. They can't actually download it. They can only go and actually read it. It's in a secure part of the university system, and it helps us a lot because, notwithstanding we've already got the formal tutorial process, which is I've always been a huge supporter of it, really. But not only have you got the discussion, sometimes you need a little bit of extra context and a little bit of extra detail about what's going on with people. And so the pass system helps members of staff to know, A, that there is an issue that we need to be aware of, and B, we can then approach the student, or if they approach us and say, look, I'm going to need a little bit of extra support here, whether it's academic or personal or whatever, we are much better prepared to help students, to support them in their studies. There tends to be a bit of a split when it comes to academic staff as to what they can help students with. Of course, if someone's not having a great time, we want to know, and we encourage students to talk to us as their personal tutors or module tutors or program leaders or whatever. But there's a limit to what academic staff can do, quite rightly, because we're not experts. We're not mental health experts, we're not physical health experts, and so on. And so what we'll also do is ensure that if there's something that's out of our scope that we really can't help with, we'll ensure that we know the university systems well enough, particularly the SU, who I've worked with really closely for years. We know the right people to send students to. It's never fobbing anybody off. It's making sure that we can get the right help for people depending on what their individual circumstances are. But the PASS system, personalised academic study support, is particularly useful for a wide range of things as well. It's not just like anxiety or depression or things like that. It may be really quite practical things like dyspraxia and dyslexia, where obviously for some people coloured filters work. For some students, they need a larger format print or text or something like that. So that gives staff heads up to have materials that are also available for particular students' needs. So that the PASS system is really, really useful.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Crispin. I think a lot of people will definitely find that incredibly useful. I'm now going to ask you a little bit about how, in your words, can students get support from their tutors regarding academic writing? Because obviously, there are so many different courses at uni, so many different ways in which people are assessed. But I feel like academic writing and, university standard of academic writing is something a lot of people worry about, and, how to word themselves in a way that is to university standard in assessment. So how can people get support for that?
It kind of depends on the school that you're in, the subject that you're studying, and also the structure of the program that you're on. But on top of that, I don't know whether it's widely known, but the library offers booking sessions for writing development, which is everything to do with planning assignments, how to formulate academic writing, how to phrase it, the structure. That I think, to a certain extent, depending on how busy they are, they can help with proofreading work with you. You should contact the library for that. I think it's under the guides section. I think it's learning development or something. It used to be called that. I think it's still called that. There's also additional support, particularly in some of the schools. For instance, in the School of English and Journalism, we have our own dedicated academic writing tutor who's a fellow of the Royal Literary Society. Her name's Rebecca Maskell. It may be, depending on which subject area you're in, which school you're in, which college you're in at the university, it might be worth inquiring of your program leaders if they have their own dedicated support tutor for academic writing. I would be surprised if English and creative writing and journalism are the only section, the only school in the university that has got this person. So we have Rebecca, but there's a wider service available from the library, which there's so many good things about our library. The thing about being a university student, and I'm not quite that old that I can't remember being a student, getting that way, but not quite that far. Our library is absolutely fantastic, and every single school has got their own dedicated subject librarian. Ours is Cheryl Cliff, who is she cannot do enough for you. She's absolutely brilliant. And it really is worth having a stroll into the library and just having a look at, just inquiring about what facilities are available there. But the the writing development sessions, they're really, really useful for academic writing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The library has got so many things put in place for students in terms of like writing, but also just how much they're there, like all the librarians are there, and I think they've also got the careers and
Oh yeah. I mean, Helen McCarran and the careers office we've got in there as well. I mean, they are just superb. The
yeah,
amount of work that the careers team do behind the scenes, trying to get things together, like well, everything from alumni speakers coming in to guest speakers to industry weeks, and they're a tiny team, and they're serving the whole university, and they
yeah,
work so hard, and they just really are worth going to talk to, particularly if you're third year and you're really not quite sure what it is you want to do. They're there to help, and
yeah,
they they're a great service. The scale of SU support that we've got at Lincoln is punching above its weight. I mean, much bigger universities than us haven't got facilities quite as good as we've got in some respects, and they should be cherished and supported, because they're there to help everybody. Just like, of course, the academic staff are there to help, but don't ever dismiss the support staff. They're equally as important as we are to give students the best experience they can have at university.
absolutely. Students are very well supported at university, that's for sure. So when you were at university and when you were a student, what was your biggest stress relief when you were obviously when you had loads of deadlines or just to do your academics in general? And what would be your best advice to students to help them relieve any academic stress?
Well, my best stress relief was moderate drinking and cycling around Nottingham a lot. That was before they had tram lines, because if they had tram lines, I would have died. I don't know how they do it in the Netherlands. Cycles and tram lines are just like, well, you end up going to, I don't know, Beeston, and that's completely the wrong direction because your wheels are stuck in the tram lines. I don't know how it works. It was. I tell you, the big. This sounds like, oh yeah, you would say this because you're a tutor, but honestly, the biggest stress, the way to avoid stress, is just get everything prepared early. Just know what's coming. Read the module guides or the module handbooks that you're given. Don't listen to anybody else on any of the chat groups that are put together. Just talk to the tutors so you know exactly what you're being asked to do, and just prepare in good time. I know I can't come up with anything more genius than that, because that's it. Virtually all of the stress that comes is due to panic, and it's usually down to just poor time management and just not genuinely knowing what it is you're supposed to be doing. Now, the level of information that you get on some modules, on some courses, it varies. I know that. I've been doing it long enough to know that. But it doesn't hurt to say to your module leaders, your tutors, whoever it is, look, I don't quite know what I'm being asked to do here. Can you just clarify it for me? And try and do it face to face as well, because email is, you wake up in the morning as a tutor and you get through the first 20 or 30, and then you've got still more coming in. And it's just so much easier, faster to talk to someone about things. And for me, personally, preferable to talk to people face to face, notwithstanding social distancing and so on and so forth, and the situation we find ourselves in at the moment. But honestly, try and avoid the stress in the first place, which, of course, the whole point, particularly of exams, is that you have an elevated experience of stress, because in life, when you go into work, there will be very stressful times, and you need to be able to work under duress at certain points. But particularly if you don't cope very well with anxiety, and anxiety per se has just gone through the roof for staff and students alike over the last year and a half. You don't need it. You just don't need the extra stress. And as staff, we are sympathetic, incredibly sympathetic to what people have been through, because we've been through it too. We didn't sign up to be distance learning tutors. We signed up to be on a campus and to enjoy the experience of being with students. And it breaks my heart when you've got young students in particular who just cannot cope with it. They can't cope with the stress, and you just need to do as much as you possibly can to mitigate against that as an individual. We'll do as much as we can, but one thing, and I have to say this, there's a limit to what we can do as members of staff. And also, you have to, students have to understand that we have to work within a certain framework. So emailing staff over a weekend or emailing somebody in the morning and expecting a reply within 20 minutes. It doesn't work like that, because we're often so busy doing other things. That's not to say that we don't care if we don't get back to somebody straight away. There's got to be a little bit of give and take. There's got to be some realistic expectations from students. But the bottom line is we are here to help, and we will do absolutely as much as we can, as quickly as we possibly can.
Exactly. And on that note, I am just going to go into a few additional final points that I do think link in for additional support. Obviously, tutors will have mentioned this, as they do every year, when it comes to extensions for assessments, which are applied for by, going into extenuating circumstances. And I know a lot of students may feel worried and thinking, well, what if my circumstances aren't deemed extenuating enough? But you don't know unless you ask. And I think that's a lot of attitude that students have. They think, oh, I'll just be fine. If you think you're not going to be fine, you need to ask, and you need to take the steps to apply for extenuating circumstances or extensions for your assessments. So if you feel your performance in assessments may be affected by a circumstance occurring that you cannot control, you have to apply within 10 days after your deadline and have appropriate evidence which highlights why you're applying, i.e. evidence from a doctor if it's a medical issue. And if you need further information on that, you can visit www.studentservices.lincoln.ac.uk. And similarly, extensions can be granted for you if you have a genuine reason for being unable to hand work in on time. You need to contact your school administrator to inquire about applying. But if you're unsure on how to contact that person in your relevant school, you can contact student support at studentsupport@lincoln.ac.uk, who will put you in touch with them. And on that note, that is the end of our podcast on managing academic stresses. Thank you, everybody, for coming in and listening. And we really would like to encourage people to take note of the techniques of stress mitigation that we've mentioned. Thank you very much, Dr. Chris Dows, for coming and joining us today. You've said some fantastic things that I know a lot of people are going to find really, really helpful.
You're very welcome.
Listeners, please do follow us at UOL Student Life on all our social medias so you can find out when podcasts come out and see all the other really helpful content that the people at Student Life create. I have been Alex.
I've been Tori.
And we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.